I'm Maggie, 59, at Christmas dinner. My son pushed me. I fell in front of his important guests. That moment I realized I'd become invisible. Just an embarrassment he wanted gone. But that humiliation sparked something. What I did next destroyed his plans and saved dozens of lives. But first, like this video, subscribe and hit that bell. Now let me tell you how it all began. The silver tinsel caught the afternoon light as I wound it carefully around the modest pine tree in my living room. December in Charleston carries a particular kind of magic. The air crisp enough to need a cardigan, the streets lined with luminarias, the scent of cinnamon and pine drifting through open windows. I was humming Silent Night when the phone rang. "Mom!" My heart lifted at Ethan's voice, though something in his tone made me pause, mid-reach for an ornament, formal, distant, like he was calling a client rather than his mother. "Sweetheart, I was just thinking about you. Remember when you were 7 and tried to put the star on top by yourself? You knocked the whole tree over and—" "Mom," he cut me off gently. "Victoria and I would like to invite you to Christmas dinner. At our place, December 24th, 7 o'clock. Victoria and I. Not we. Not I'd love to have you." "Oh, that's wonderful." I gripped the phone tighter, ignoring the small ache in my chest. "I'll bring my pecan pie. You know, the one your father always—" "That's fine. We'll see you then." The line went dead before I could say I loved him. I stood there holding the phone, watching dust motes dance in the winter sunlight. When had my boy started talking to me like that? The child who once clung to my scrubs when I came home from the hospital, who'd curl beside me reading Where the Wild Things Are until he fell asleep against my shoulder. 20 years. That's how long it had been since John's accident. 20 Christmases of learning to celebrate alone, watching Ethan grow from a heartbroken 14-year-old into this stranger in an expensive suit. The wedding changed everything. Victoria Hayes Thompson, with her family pedigree and country club membership, had different plans for my son than Friday night dinners at his mother's simple house. "You're overthinking it, Maggie." I smiled at Sarah's voice in my head before she'd even arrived. My best friend had a key and a sixth sense for when I needed her. "He invited me to Christmas," I said as she appeared in the doorway, arms full of grocery bags. And, I don't know, it felt like a courtesy call. Sarah set down the bags and pulled me into a hug that smelled like vanilla and common sense. "Then show up and remind him who raised him. Remind him what love looks like." For the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into preparations. I knitted a scarf for Ethan in his favorite blue, found a beautiful silk bookmark for Victoria's book club, baked 3 trial versions of my pecan pie until it was perfect. "You're trying too hard," Sarah warned over coffee at Lena's Cafe downtown. "I'm his mother. There's no such thing as trying too hard." She squeezed my hand. Protect your heart, okay? That daughter-in-law of yours has claws hidden under those manicured nails." I laughed it off, but her words lingered. The letter from the bank arrived on December 22nd. Official letterhead, something about property documents requiring attention. I glanced at it briefly. Probably just yearly tax notices for the old farmland John and I used to own, the place where we'd planned to retire. Before cancer and car accidents rewrote our story, I tucked it into the kitchen drawer. Whatever it was could wait until after Christmas. That night, I sat in John's old armchair, the one I couldn't bear to replace, and looked at our wedding photo on the mantel. "I miss you most at Christmas," I whispered. "But our boy invited me to dinner. That's something, right?" The house didn't answer, but hope bloomed in my chest anyway, fragile and foolish as the first flowers of spring. The house glowed like something from a magazine spread, every window dressed in perfect garland, every light timed to twinkle in synchronized harmony. I parked my 15-year-old Honda between a Mercedes and a BMW, suddenly conscious of the rust spot near the back wheel. The pecan pie sat warm in my lap, wrapped in the same checkered cloth I'd used for 30 years. John had loved this cloth. He'd loved everything I made with these hands. Victoria opened the door before I could knock. She wore cream silk that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her blonde hair swept into an elegant twist. "Maggie, you made it." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you brought something. How rustic." She took the pie between 2 fingers like it might contaminate her manicure. then handed it off to a server I hadn't noticed hovering behind her. A server at a family dinner. Come in, come in. Though I must warn you, we're doing something more sophisticated this year. I hope you'll appreciate the elevated atmosphere. The living room sparkled with crystal and silver. 20 guests mingled with champagne flutes, their laughter polished and rehearsed. I recognized Ethan's senior partner, Victoria's mother Constance, holding court by the fireplace in pearls and judgment. Several country club faces I'd seen in society page photos. Not a single person I knew. Ethan appeared through the crowd and my heart caught. So handsome in his tailored suit, so much like his father in the jawline and the way he held his shoulders. But his eyes had learned to slide past me. Mom, glad you could make it. He kissed my cheek quickly, already looking over my shoulder at someone more important. Victoria's really outdone herself, hasn't she? It's beautiful, sweetheart. I was hoping we might... Mr. Thompson, his partner called out. Tell us about that merger. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there holding my simple purse, wearing my best dress, the navy one from Macy's clearance rack, and felt every year of my 59 winters. A server offered me champagne. I took it, grateful for something to do with my hands. Dinner is served, Victoria announced, and we moved like a choreographed ballet toward the dining room. The table stretched impossibly long, set with china so delicate I was afraid to breathe on it. Red candles burned in tall silver holders. Place cards marked each seat with calligraphy names. I found Ethan's card near the head of the table. Naturally, I moved toward the empty chair beside him, where I'd sat for every family dinner of his childhood, where we'd said grace and shared our days and laughed until our sides hurt. My fingers had just touched the chair back when Victoria's hand covered mine. Oh, Maggie. Her voice dripped with sympathetic condescension. That seat is reserved for my mother, you understand. Constance so rarely gets to sit with Ethan. Perhaps you'd be comfortable over there, near the Christmas tree. She gestured towards the corner, the last seat, where children sat when the adults ran out of room. I looked at Ethan. Surely he would say something. Surely my son would. Mom, his voice carried an edge of impatience. It's Victoria's table. Please, just sit where she suggested. The room had gone quiet, 20 pairs of eyes watching. Constance smirked behind her champagne. Someone coughed. My face burned as I turned toward the corner seat. The Persian rug beneath my feet seemed to ripple and shift. My shoe caught the edge, and I stumbled. Ethan grabbed my arm. Not gently, not the way you catch someone you love. He grabbed me the way you grab a problem that's embarrassing you in front of important people. The shove wasn't hard. Maybe he didn't even mean it, but my balance was already gone. And the next thing I knew, I was falling. The floor rose up to meet me, hard and humiliating. My purse skittered across the hardwood. The candles flickered in the sudden movement. Silence, complete, suffocating silence. Oh my God, Maggie! Victoria's voice was theatrical concern. Are you all right? Someone help her up. But no one moved. They just stared at the old woman on the floor, at the disruption to their perfect evening, at proof that I didn't belong in this glittering world my son had built. I pushed myself up slowly. My hip throbbed. My hands shook, but I forced my lips into a smile, because that's what you do when you've spent 59 years being strong. I'm fine. Just a silly stumble. The dinner continued. I sat in my corner and picked at food I couldn't taste. No one spoke to me. Ethan avoided my eyes when dessert came. Not my pecan pie, but some elaborate French thing with gold leaf. Victoria made a point of serving her mother first. My pie never appeared. I left before coffee, mumbling something about an early morning. No one protested. No one even seemed to notice. The drive home blurred through tears. I wouldn't let fall until I was alone. Charleston's Christmas lights mocked me with their cheerful glow. Families visible through windows, gathered in warmth and love. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the darkness, hands still gripping the steering wheel. Inside, I collapsed into John's armchair, our armchair, and finally let myself break. If you were here, I whispered to his photograph, our son would remember where he came from. He'd remember what matters. But John wasn't here, and I was so terribly alone. Christmas morning arrived silent and cold. I woke in John's chair, my neck stiff, my dress wrinkled. the lights on my modest tree still twinkling their patient vigil. No call from Ethan. No text asking if I'd gotten home safely. Nothing. I made coffee and tried not to think about Christmases past, the chaos of wrapping paper and pancakes, Ethan's sleepy face as he stumbled down the stairs at dawn, John's laugh echoing through our old farmhouse. That farmhouse. God, I missed it. We'd sold the house itself years ago after John died, kept only the land. Too many memories to live there alone, but too precious to let go entirely. 20 acres of red clay and pine trees, where John had planned to build us a retirement home, where we'd picnicked under stars and dreamed impossible dreams, where we'd been happy. I was washing my coffee cup when I remembered the letter, the bank notice I'd shoved in the drawer, too focused on Christmas to care about paperwork. Now I had nothing but time. The envelope was heavier than I expected. Official, the kind of weight that carries bad news. I slit it open with a butter knife, my hands steadier than they should have been after last night. Property transfer notification, 2847 Rural County Road. I read it once, then again, then a third time. Certain I was misunderstanding. Pending sale proceedings initiated by Authorized Representative Ethan J. Thompson. Transfer of deed scheduled for January 15th. Final documentation requires signature. The room tilted. I sat down hard at the kitchen table. Ethan was selling the land. Our land. John's land. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers, scrolling through ancient files until I found what I was looking for. There. The power of attorney I'd signed 5 years ago when Ethan said it would make tax season easier for both of us. Simple paperwork, trust between mother and son. He'd asked me to sign it over dinner. Casual as passing the salt, I'd signed without reading because that's what you do when your child asks. You trust them. Stupid, I whispered. So stupid. I called him immediately. It rang 4 times. Then voicemail, his professional voice. You've reached Ethan Thompson. Leave a message. Ethan, it's Mom. I got a letter from the bank about the farmland. Please call me. We need to talk about this. I tried to keep my voice steady. Failed. An hour passed. 2. The bank was closed for Christmas. Unhelpful recorded messages. The only response to my frantic calls. I left 3 more messages for Ethan. Texted twice. Each one more desperate than the last. By evening, my phone finally rang. But it wasn't Ethan. Maggie, hi, it's Victoria. That same saccharine sweetness from last night. Ethan's resting after yesterday's dinner. You know how exhausting entertaining can be. He asked me to return your calls about the property situation. My stomach dropped. I need to speak with my son. Oh, I know you're concerned, but really it's better this way. That land isn't doing anyone any good just sitting there. Is it? For us? Well, for Ethan. It's an opportunity. A development company is offering excellent money. You'll be taken care of, naturally. A small percentage. He didn't ask me. Silence on the line. Then, Maggie, he has power of attorney. He doesn't need to ask. This is what's best for the family. You do want what's best for your son, don't you? The condescension in her voice made my hands curl into fists. Put Ethan on the phone. I don't think that's... Now, Victoria, he doesn't want to talk to you right now. I'm sorry. But that's just the reality. Perhaps when you're ready to be more reasonable about all this. The line went dead. I sat staring at my phone, my reflection distorted in its black screen. Who was this woman staring back at me? When had I become someone whose own son refused to speak to her? Someone whose life could be dismantled without consultation. Dismissed with patronizing explanations, I found Sarah's number through muscle memory. Come over, I said when she answered. Bring wine. And maybe the name of a lawyer. Oh, honey, what did they do? I couldn't answer through the tears. That night, I pulled out every photo album I owned. John and me at the farmhouse, young and sunburned and so in love. Ethan as a toddler, running through that same land with a kite. Our little family, complete and whole. Before accidents and ambition tore us apart, I'd thought the worst thing that could happen was losing John. I'd been wrong. The worst thing was watching your child forget every lesson you taught them about love, about loyalty, about what actually matters in this short, precious life. But as I sat surrounded by memories, something else began to bloom beneath the grief, something harder, something that whispered, "You don't have to accept this, mister." Patterson's office smelled like old books and lemon furniture polish. He was 70 if he was a day. Semi-retired with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a handshake that felt like honesty itself. Sarah had found him through a church friend. He doesn't care about billable hours, she'd said. He cares about right and wrong. I needed someone who understood the difference. Mrs. Thompson. He spread the documents across his desk. My power of attorney, the bank letters, property records going back 20 years. I'll be direct with you. Your son is using the authority you granted him to sell your land without your explicit consent. Legally, it's questionable. Morally, he paused, removing his glasses to clean them. Morally, it's unconscionable. My hands twisted in my lap. Can he actually do this? He's trying to. The development company, Pinnacle Properties, is offering substantial money for that acreage. They plan to build a luxury residential community, 20 homes, half-acre lots, starting at $800,000 each. The numbers made my head spin. And Ethan would receive the full sale price minus standard fees. Given the power of attorney, he'd be under no legal obligation to share proceeds with you, though he'd mentioned allocating a small percentage. Small, like my place at his table, like my role in his life. What can I do? Patterson leaned forward. You can revoke the power of attorney, stop the sale entirely, but Maggie, and I need you to understand this, it would mean taking legal action against your own son. The process wouldn't be quiet. It would be public, potentially damaging to his career and reputation. I closed my eyes, saw Ethan as a boy, crying in my arms after John's funeral, saw him graduating law school, how proud he'd been, how he'd thanked me in his speech, saw the man who'd pushed me to the floor 3 nights ago without apology. Let me think about it. I walked from Patterson's office into the cold December afternoon. My mind churning, Charleston's historic district was busy with post-Christmas shoppers, couples holding hands, children licking ice cream cones. Despite the chill, I found myself at Lena's cafe without conscious decision. Drawn by the warm glow of her windows and the memory of kindness, Lena Brooks looked up from behind the counter and knew immediately something was wrong. That's the thing about someone whose life you've saved. They learn to read you in ways others can't. Backroom now, she called to her assistant to cover the counter and practically dragged me into her small office. Talk. So I did. Everything spilled out. The Christmas dinner, the bank letters, Patterson's explanation, the impossible choice between my dignity and my son. Lena listened, then was quiet for a long moment when she finally spoke. Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. 7 years ago, I was in your air with sepsis, no insurance, no family, no hope. You stayed 4 hours past your shift, held my hand through the worst of it, paid for medications I couldn't afford. You saved my life. Maggie. Lena. No, listen. I've waited 7 years to return that kindness. Now's my chance. She grabbed both my hands. You helped me when I was invisible. Let me help you now. I don't need money. I'm not offering money. I'm offering partnership. And I know exactly who else you need to talk to. That's how I ended up in Reverend Harris's study an hour later. Lena beside me. The old pastor's eyes full of the kind of wisdom that comes from decades of hearing confessions and offering grace. I can't sue my own son, I said. But I can't let him do this either. That land. It's all I have left of John, of our dreams, of who we were before everything fell apart. Reverend Harris steepled his fingers. What if I told you there was a third option? One that doesn't involve courts or conflict, but still reclaims your voice. I'm listening. What if that land served something greater than anyone's individual gain? What if it became a place of refuge, of second chances? He pulled out a worn folder. The church has been discussing the need for transitional housing for older women, widows, divorcees, those without family support, women who become invisible after 50, pushed aside by a society that forgets them. My breath caught. You're not the only one who's been made to feel small, Maggie. But you have something most don't. Resources that could change lives. Lena squeezed my hand. We could do this. Transform that property into a real haven. I can mobilize local business owners for donations. The Reverend has the church community, and you, she smiled, you have 35 years of caring for people who need you. For the first time in days, something shifted in my chest. Not just anger or hurt, but purpose. My son wanted to turn our memories into profit. I said slowly. What if instead I turned our memories into hope? Reverend Harris smiled. Now you're thinking clearly. I walked home that night under a sky full of stars. The same stars John and I used to watch from that farmland. And I swear I could feel him beside me, whispering what he always said when life got hard. You're stronger than you know, Maggie. Show them. Maybe it was finally time I did. We met at Lena's cafe after closing. The three of us hunched over blueprints and coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Rain drummed against the windows, Charleston surrendering to one of its winter storms. Heartland Haven, Lena said, testing the words. I like it. It sounds like exactly what it is. A place to come home to. Reverend Harris nodded, marking notes on a yellow legal pad. The church fund can cover initial renovation costs. We're not talking luxury. Basic weatherproofing, plumbing updates, safe electrical. The bones of those old farm buildings are solid. I stared at the property survey. Seeing it with new eyes, the main house where John and I had lived was long sold. But the barn, the guest house, the workshop, they remained weathered but standing, waiting. How many women could we house? I asked. Initially, maybe 5 or 6. Comfortably, with proper renovation, 8 to 10. Plus day programs for those who just need support. Not housing. The Reverend looked at me over his reading glasses. But Maggie, I need you to be certain. Once we start this, once we make the donation official and register as a non-profit, there's no undoing it. That land won't be yours anymore. It's not really mine now, I said quietly. Ethan made that clear. Lena covered my hand with hers. This isn't about Ethan. This is about you choosing what legacy means. Money that profits one family, or a home that saves dozens. I thought about all those nights I'd spent in the ER, holding the hands of women who had no one else. The widows who came in with mysterious ailments that were really just loneliness. The divorced women my age, starting over with nothing but courage and fear. The ones everyone else forgot. I was invisible at my son's Christmas table, I said. No woman should ever have to feel that way. Then let's make damn sure they don't. Lena grinned, and something tight in my chest finally loosened. Over the next 2 weeks, we worked like women possessed. Patterson helped with the legal paperwork, transferring the deed, establishing the nonprofit, creating a board of directors. Lena called in favors from every small business owner in Charleston, assembling a coalition of contractors, suppliers, volunteers. The Reverend organized work crews from the church. Sarah became my right hand, my conscience, my courage when doubt crept in at 3 a.m. You're sure about this? She asked one night as we stuffed envelopes with donation requests. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, even knowing it'll hurt Ethan, that he'll see it as betrayal. I looked at her. He's the one who betrayed me, Sarah. I'm just choosing who I want to be in response. Still, I tried one last time. I had to. I drove to his house on a Thursday afternoon, unannounced. The development was called Windsor Heights. Every lawn perfect, every facade identical, every household probably hiding the same cracks mine was showing. Victoria answered the door in yoga clothes, her face tightening when she saw me. Maggie, Ethan isn't. I know he's home. His car is in the garage. He doesn't want to see you. Those words, so casual, so cutting, I felt them like a physical blow, but I stood taller instead of shrinking. Then tell him this. His mother loves him. She always will, but she's done waiting for permission to have a voice. Victoria's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe even a flicker of respect, but then her mask returned. You're making a mistake. Fighting, this will only make everything worse. I'm not fighting anything, I'm building something, there's a difference. I turned and walked back to my car, head high, even though my hands shook so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. That night, I signed the final papers. The land was no longer mine. It belonged to Heartland Haven Foundation, a registered 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to providing transitional housing and support services for women over 50. Patterson witnessed my signature. You're doing a remarkable thing, Maggie. I'm doing the only thing that lets me sleep at night. The press release went out the next morning. Lena had a friend at the Charleston Chronicle who'd been looking for a feel-good story to counter all the post-holiday depression news. They found one. I didn't read the article when it published. I was too busy at the property, helping clear debris from the barn, imagining it filled with light and laughter and women who'd found their second chapter. But Sarah texted me a photo of the headline, "Local widow donates valuable land for women's shelter, an act of compassion in times of greed." My phone started ringing within the hour. Volunteers, donations, interview requests. And somewhere across town, I knew, Ethan's phone was ringing too, with very different calls. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something quieter, deeper. I felt like myself again. The article hit the paper on a Tuesday morning. By noon, it had been shared 300 times on local social media. By evening, the Charleston news station was requesting an interview. I was on my knees in the old barn, scrubbing decades of dirt from floorboards, when Sarah burst through the door with her phone in hand. "Maggie, you need to see this." The comments section had exploded, hundreds of people sharing their own stories. Women who'd been pushed aside, forgotten, made invisible. Donations were flooding in through the foundation's barely functional website. A construction company offered materials at cost. Someone's grandmother wanted to volunteer. "You've started something," Sarah whispered. "Something bigger than you planned." I sat back on my heels, overwhelmed. I just wanted to save the land. "You're saving more than land now." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mom?" Ethan's voice. But wrong. Strained. Angry in a way I'd never heard. "Sweetheart, how could you?" The words came out strangled. "How could you do this without telling me? Without even discussing, like you discussed selling it with me?" Silence. "Then that's different. I was handling business. You've made us look like villains. Do you know how many calls I've gotten today?" My senior partner saw the article. He asked why I wasn't supporting my mother's inspiring initiative. My clients are questioning my judgment. Victoria's book club is buzzing with gossip about the ungrateful son who tried to profit off his widowed mother. "Is that what bothers you?" My voice stayed eerily calm. "Not that you tried to take my land without permission. Not that you pushed me at Christmas and never apologized. But that people found out. That land was supposed to be our inheritance, our future, your inheritance, your future. When did it stop being ours, Ethan? When did you start seeing me as an obstacle instead of your mother?" I could hear Victoria in the background, her voice shrill. "Tell her she's ruined everything. Tell her." "This is unforgivable, Mom. You've humiliated us publicly. You've damaged my career. I could sue you for..." "For what? Donating my own property to charity, please. Call your lawyer. I'm sure Patterson would love to explain the difference between generosity and theft." He sputtered. I'd never spoken to him like this. The old Maggie would have apologized, backtracked, soothed his ego. But that Maggie died on his dining room floor. Everything I've done has been legal and documented. If you want to fight this in court, that's your choice. But know that it will make everything public, including how you obtained power of attorney and what you plan to do with it. I'm your son. Yes, you are, and I loved you enough to let you go build your life, but I love myself enough now to build mine. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. Sarah picked it up, then pulled me into her arms while I cried, not from sadness this time, but from the terrifying freedom of finally standing my ground. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Windsor Heights neighbors stopped inviting Ethan and Victoria to dinner parties. Whispers followed them at the country club. One of Ethan's clients switched to a different law firm, citing concerns about family values. Victoria's mother, Constance, called her daily with increasingly hysterical updates about their social reputation. I heard all this third hand, through Charleston's relentless gossip mill. Part of me ached for my son. Most of me remembered how he'd let me sit in the corner while his life continued without me. Meanwhile, Heartland Haven came alive. Volunteers appeared every day. Retired contractors, church ladies with casseroles, college students needing service hours. The old barn transformed into a common space with donated furniture and fresh paint. The guest house got new windows and a functioning kitchen. And then Doris arrived. She was 67, recently widowed, carrying everything she owned in 2 trash bags. The shelter where she'd been staying had a 30-day limit. She had nowhere else to go. "Is this real?" she whispered, standing in the doorway of her small but clean room. "Can I really stay?" "For as long as you need," I told her. "This is your home now," she cried. I cried. Lena cried. Even Reverend Harris got misty-eyed during the blessing ceremony that evening. This was why, this moment, watching a woman who'd been invisible suddenly seen again, this was worth every burned bridge. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're killing me, Mom. Every day it gets worse. Everyone judges, everyone whispers. Victoria won't speak to me. How do I fix this?" I stared at the message for a long time. Finally typed, "You start by asking yourself who you want to be. The answer isn't in your bank account or your reputation, it's in the mirror." He didn't respond, but 2 days later, an anonymous donation appeared in Heartland Haven's account. $5,000, no name attached, Patterson called to tell me. The transaction came from a private account registered to, well, I think you can guess. I closed my eyes, feeling something crack open in my chest. Not forgiveness yet, not reconciliation, but maybe, just maybe, the first tiny seed of hope. January brought cold rain and colder silences. I learned about Ethan's unraveling the way I learned everything now, through fragments and whispers, through Sarah's carefully worded updates and Lana's customers who couldn't resist sharing gossip over their morning coffee. He'd lost a major client, something about ethical concerns and misalignment of values. His name was removed from the partner track discussion. Victoria had stopped attending her book club after someone made a pointed comment about family priorities. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. Heartland Haven, meanwhile, bloomed like spring arriving early. 3 more women moved in. Ruth, 63, divorced after 40 years, her ex-husband leaving her for a younger woman. Patricia, 58, caring for her elderly mother until she passed, then finding herself alone with no savings. And Angela, 71, estranged from her children who decided she was too much trouble. Their stories broke my heart and rebuilt it stronger. We established routines, morning coffee in the common room, shared meals, workshops on everything from financial literacy to using smartphones. Lena taught a cooking class. Sarah led a book club. Reverend Harris held optional evening prayers. But mostly, we just existed together. Women who'd been made invisible, finally seeing each other. "You know what I missed most?" Doris said one evening as we prepared dinner. "Being needed, not as a wife or mother, but just as myself, having my opinion matter." I understood completely. On a Tuesday afternoon, I was showing a potential donor around the property when I saw him, Ethan, standing at the edge of the property line, half hidden behind his car. Just watching, he didn't approach, didn't call out, just stood there, observing as I laughed with volunteers, as Doris hung laundry in the weak winter sunshine, as life happened in the space he'd tried to sell. I pretended not to notice, let him watch, let him see what he'd almost destroyed. He left after 20 minutes without ever stepping onto the property. That night, Sarah found me crying in the barn. "Honey, what is it?" He came, he saw, and he still couldn't walk through the gate. I wiped my eyes angrily. When did my boy become so lost? Maybe he's finding his way back slowly. Or maybe I've lost him forever. Sarah held me while I grieved, not for what was, but for what might never be again. Meanwhile, Victoria's world was crumbling in ways I never intended. Her mother called me, Constance Hayes, who'd smirked at my fall, who'd taken my seat at that Christmas table. "Mrs. Thompson, Maggie," her voice was strained, "I need to speak with you about my daughter. We met at a neutral cafe downtown." Constance looked smaller somehow, her perfect posture finally showing cracks. "Victoria is struggling. The social isolation has been difficult. She's not eating, she's not sleeping. She blames Ethan for not handling you better, but really," Constance paused, looking older than her 65 years. "Really, I think she blames me for teaching her that appearances matter more than substance." I didn't know what to say. "I owe you an apology," Constance continued, "for that dinner, for taking your seat, for raising a daughter who thought it was acceptable to treat you that way." Her eyes met mine. "I've spent my whole life building walls of propriety and perfection. It's left me lonely, and it's destroying my daughter's marriage. I don't know how to fix it." "You can't fix it," I said gently. She has to want to change. Will you talk to her, please? She won't listen to me. But maybe I'm not her therapist, Constance, or her mother. No. But you're the woman who chose compassion over revenge. That has to mean something. I went home troubled, Victoria's mother's words echoing in my head. That night I wrote in the journal Sarah had given me. Heartland Haven was supposed to be about helping strangers. I never expected it to hold a mirror up to my own family, showing us all who we've become. Ethan sees it from a distance, unable to cross the threshold. Victoria drowns in the consequences of values built on sand. And me, I'm learning that standing your ground doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels lonely. 2 days later, Victoria appeared at Heartland Haven. No makeup, swollen eyes, clothes rumpled in a way she'd never have allowed before. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice small. I looked at this woman who'd orchestrated my humiliation, who'd poisoned my son against his own mother, who'd valued image over everything real. "Come inside," I said, because that's what we did at Heartland Haven. We gave people second chances, even the ones who didn't deserve them, even the ones who'd hurt us most. Victoria sat across from me in the small office we'd converted from the old workshop, her hands wrapped around tea. She wasn't drinking. Through the window, I could see Ruth teaching Angela how to use FaceTime to call her grandchildren. Ordinary magic. "I don't know how to start," Victoria whispered. "Start with the truth." She laughed bitterly. "The truth is, I've been a monster. To you, to Ethan, to myself." Her voice cracked. I was raised to believe that success meant perfection. Perfect house, perfect husband, perfect social standing. Anything that didn't fit the image. She met my eyes. Anything that didn't fit got eliminated. "I was an embarrassment to you. You were real," she said. And real was terrifying. Because if I let myself see your value, your kindness, your strength, your genuine love, then I'd have to acknowledge how hollow my own life had become. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I pushed you into that corner because that's what I've been living for 32 years. Pushed to the side, diminished, afraid to take up space." I watched her cry, feeling the complicated tangle of anger and pity in my chest. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Ethan is destroying himself. He drinks until he can't feel anything. He stares at his phone for hours, reading comments about what a terrible son he is. He drives by here but won't come in. He's losing everything, Maggie. And I realized," she took a shuddering breath, "I realized I'm the one who taught him to value the wrong things. I'm the one who made him ashamed of where he came from. He's an adult. He made his own choices. But I influenced them every time I made a comment about your house being quaint. Every time I steered him away from visiting you. Every time I planned events knowing you'd feel out of place. I was poisoning him against you. Against himself." She finally looked up. "I need you to know I'm sorry. Truly, devastatingly sorry." I sat with that for a long moment. The old Maggie would have accepted immediately, desperate for reconciliation. But I'd learned something in these hard months. Forgiveness isn't the same as permission to do it again. "Victoria, I appreciate your apology. I do. But Ethan needs to find his own way back. Not because you told him to, but because he's ready to see clearly. He won't come if you don't invite him." "Then he's not ready." She stood, looking broken in a way her perfect facades never allowed. "For what it's worth, you were right. About everything, the land, the project, choosing love over profit. This place," she gestured around. "This is what legacy actually looks like, not bank accounts or social status." "Visit again," I said as she reached the door. "Come volunteer, learn who you are when you're not performing." She nodded, then left. I didn't expect to see Ethan that night, but at 10 p.m. there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, my son stood there, and for a moment I saw him as he was, not the polished lawyer, but the scared boy who'd lost his father too young and never learned how to grieve properly. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He sat at my small kitchen table, in the same chair he'd used for homework, for midnight snacks, for countless ordinary moments of childhood. His hands shook slightly. "Victoria told me she came here." "She did. She said you were kind to her. After everything," he looked at me with raw confusion. "Why? Because cruelty in response to cruelty just makes the world smaller." He flinched. "I'm not cruel, Mom. I was trying to build something." to be successful, to make you proud. Ethan, I sat across from him. When did you start believing success meant erasing where you came from? I didn't. You tried to sell our land without telling me. Land where your father and I were happy, where we dreamed of growing old together, where you played as a child. My voice stayed steady. You took my seat at your table. You pushed me to the floor and never apologized. You let your wife treat me like an embarrassment while you stood silent. I was angry, he said weakly. You were making things difficult with the land sale. The land was mine. The words came out sharp. Not yours to sell, not yours to decide about, mine, and you took it because you thought I didn't matter enough to ask. Silence fell between us, heavy with all the unsaid years. I thought, he finally whispered, that providing financially was the same as loving, that giving you money from the sale would prove I cared. I don't need your money, Ethan. I need my son to see me as a person, not a problem to solve or a charity case to manage. I see you. Do you? I leaned forward. Tell me what I do on Saturday mornings. Tell me what book I'm reading. Tell me the last thing that made me laugh. His silence was answer enough. You stopped seeing me years ago. I became background noise in your important life. He broke then, tears running down his face in a way I hadn't seen since childhood. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it with a conversation, or money, or apologies. I reached across to touch his hand. But you can start by asking yourself who you want to be. Do you want to be the man who profits from his mother's memories, or the man who honors where he came from? The land is gone. The project is finished. I can't undo. I'm not asking you to undo anything. I'm asking you to decide what matters going forward. I squeezed his fingers. Visit Heartland Haven. See what your inheritance became. Talk to the women there. Learn their stories, then decide if you lost something valuable, or if maybe you just finally found your conscience. He left without promising anything, but something had shifted. Whether it was enough, only time would tell. Spring arrived gently that year, coaxing daffodils from the winter-hard ground and painting Heartland Haven in colors I'd almost forgotten existed. The dogwoods bloomed early, their white petals catching morning light like promises kept. 2 months had passed since my confrontation with Ethan. 2 months of silence that felt less like abandonment and more like necessary distance, the kind you need to let wounds breathe before they can properly heal. The haven itself had transformed beyond my wildest imaginings. 8 women now called it home, each one carrying stories that could break your heart or rebuild it stronger, depending on how you listened. Our waiting list grew weekly, names and phone numbers representing lives waiting for permission to matter again. Doris had started a garden that drew neighborhood volunteers every Saturday. Ruth taught quilting classes on Thursday afternoons in the common room, her patient hands guiding women who'd forgotten they could create beauty. Angela, once too depressed to leave her room, now ran a phone support line for other isolated seniors 3 mornings a week. I'd walk past her small office and hear her voice, steady, compassionate, telling some stranger on the other end, "You're not invisible. I see you. We all see you." We weren't just surviving. We were thriving in ways that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with purpose. The morning routine had become sacred to me. I'd wake at 6, start coffee in the communal kitchen, and watch the house wake up around me. Patricia always emerged first, moving slowly due to arthritis but determined to see the sunrise. Then Ruth, humming hymns under her breath as she set out mugs. Doris would shuffle in wearing her ridiculous fuzzy slippers, making everyone laugh. Angela last, still shy about taking up space but getting braver every day. "Morning, Maggie," they'd chorus, and my heart would swell with the simple gift of being needed, being wanted, being part of something larger than my own pain. "Mail's here," Lena called one Tuesday, bringing in a stack that got bigger every day. Donation checks from people who'd read about us, thank you notes from women we'd helped, letters from daughters who wanted to bring their mothers for a visit, to show them that life after 50 wasn't a slow fade into irrelevance. One envelope made my hands still. Law offices of Thompson and Associates. Ethan's firm letterhead, formal and imposing. "You okay?" Sarah appeared at my elbow, her presence as reliable as sunrise. "I don't know yet." My fingers shook slightly as I opened it. Inside was a single page, professional letterhead, a brief note in Ethan's distinctive handwriting. The same careful script I'd watched him develop through years of homework. Heartland Haven Foundation. Please accept pro bono legal services for any incorporation issues, zoning questions, or nonprofit compliance needs. No strings attached. No expectation of reconciliation. Just trying to do one small right thing in a life full of wrong ones. Yet I read it 3 times. Trying to understand the man my son was becoming. Trying to separate hope from wishful thinking. He's trying, Sarah said softly, reading over my shoulder. Maybe, I folded the letter carefully, or maybe he's just trying to ease his guilt. Does the motivation matter if the help is real? I didn't have an answer for that, but Patterson confirmed it the next day when he called, barely containing his surprise. Maggie, your son already filed paperwork correcting a zoning technicality I hadn't even noticed. Prevents potential legal challenges from neighboring properties. Solid work. Professional, and he refused payment. Silent help. The kind that didn't seek credit or forgiveness. Just tried to be useful. Just tried to matter in a positive way for once. I didn't call to thank him. Wasn't ready yet. Didn't trust my voice not to break with all the complicated emotions churning inside me. Anger and hope and grief and love, all tangled together like thread that's been knotted too long. But I kept the note, tucked it into John's old Bible that I kept on my desk right next to our wedding photo. Victoria returned on a Tuesday afternoon, and I almost didn't recognize her. Gone with the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She wore worn jeans, a faded college t-shirt, and her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No jewelry except her wedding ring, no armor. I was hoping I could volunteer, she said, her voice small in a way I'd never heard from her. Whatever you need. Cleaning toilets, washing dishes, filing paperwork, anything. She swallowed hard. I need to learn how to be a person who helps instead of judges. I studied her carefully, looking for the performance, the manipulation. But all I saw was a woman who'd finally looked in the mirror and didn't like what she found. This isn't a penance assignment, Victoria. These women need genuine support, not your guilt working itself out. I know. She met my eyes steadily for the first time since I'd known her. I also need to learn how to be real, how to connect without performing, how to matter without status or image, or any of the things I've hidden behind my entire life. Maybe we can figure it out together. So Victoria came every Tuesday and Thursday, slowly revealing layers I never knew existed beneath that polished exterior. She was funny when she wasn't performing. Genuinely funny, with a self-deprecating humor that surprised everyone. She was insightful when she stopped posturing, offering observations about people's emotions that showed she'd been paying attention all along. Just from behind her walls, she was profoundly lonely, in a way I recognized from my own darkest nights after John died. That particular ache of being surrounded by people, but unknown by any of them. One afternoon in late March, I found her crying in the garden with Doris, both women sitting on the bench John had built 30 years ago, now weathered but still solid. I'm 67 years old, Doris was saying, her papery hand covering Victoria's smooth one. And I'm just now learning that I'm allowed to take up space, that my voice matters, that my opinions have value beyond whether they please someone else. Your mother-in-law taught me that. She teaches all of us that every single day just by being herself. Victoria looked up as I approached, her eyes red and makeupless, more beautiful in her vulnerability than she'd ever been in perfection. I'm 32, she said, voice breaking, and I've never learned that lesson. I've spent my entire life shrinking to fit other people's expectations, my mother's, society's, even my own impossible standards. I don't even know who I am under all the performance. So stop performing, I said, sitting on the other side of her. You're welcome here, Victoria, but you have to be real. The masks don't work within these walls. We've all had our hearts broken by pretending. There's no room for more of that here. She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand like a child. Will you teach me how? How to be real? How to be brave like you? I'm not brave. I'm just tired of being invisible. That's the same thing, Doris said wisely. Bravery is just exhaustion with your own fear. So we did teach her, all of us in small ways. Ruth showed her how to quilt, how to sit with silence and let creativity flow without judgment. Angela taught her about the support line, how to listen without fixing, how to witness pain without minimizing it. Patricia shared recipes and stories, including her through the ordinary intimacy of cooking together. Lena gave her shifts at the cafe, teaching her to serve instead of being served, and slowly, impossibly, Victoria became part of our strange little family. Not the woman she'd been, but someone new, someone real. The anonymous donations continued throughout those months. $5,000 here, $3,000 there, $7,000 for new appliances. Never from Ethan's name, always from an account labeled simply, "In memory of John Thompson." It broke my heart in the best way. This silent acknowledgement that he understood what he'd almost destroyed, what his father would have thought of his actions. Money couldn't buy forgiveness, but it could help repair some of the damage. It was a start. Then one Saturday in mid-April, Ruth ran into the common room breathless, her usually composed face flushed with excitement. "Maggie, there's someone here asking for you. A man, he says. He says he's your son." The world tilted slightly. My coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "Should I tell him you're busy?" Ruth asked, protective in the way all the women had become of me. "You don't owe him anything, you know, not after what he did." "No." I took a breath, steadying myself. "I'll talk to him." I walked out slowly, giving myself time to prepare, to build whatever walls I needed. But when I reached him standing by his car, hands shoved deep in pockets, shoulders hunched against some internal cold despite the warm spring sunshine, all my planned words disappeared. He looked thinner, older, tired in his bones in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep and everything to do with carrying shame you can't put down. "I've been working with a therapist," he said without preamble, the words tumbling out like he'd rehearsed them 1,000 times. "Twice a week for 2 months, trying to understand how I became someone who could hurt you the way I did, how I let ambition and image and the desperate need to belong poison everything real in my life, how I forgot that love isn't about what you provide, but about who you are when nothing else matters." "Ethan, please, Mom, let me finish. I need to say this." His voice shook, and I saw my boy again, the one who'd been afraid of thunderstorms and my leaving for night shifts. "I was angry at you for the land, for the public embarrassment, for making me look bad in front of people whose opinions I valued more than your feelings. But the truth is, you held up a mirror, and I hated what I saw. You took something that should have profited me and turned it into something that saves people. You chose grace over greed, compassion over revenge, purpose over profit, and he swallowed hard, tears streaming down his face. I chose money over my own mother. I chose image over integrity. I became everything Dad would have been ashamed of. You chose fear," I corrected gently, taking a step closer. "Fear of not being successful enough, of not belonging in the world you'd built, of being exposed as someone from humble beginnings in a society that values pedigree. I understand that fear, honey, I've lived it too. Can you forgive me?" The question hung in the spring air between us, heavy with all the months of pain. "I already have," I said softly. "But forgiveness isn't the same as trust. Ethan, that we have to rebuild brick by brick, day by day. It won't happen with one conversation or one apology. It takes time and consistency and proving through actions that you've actually changed." He nodded, relief and determination warring on his face. "Can I start today, right now? Could I help with something? Paint a room, move furniture, build something? I don't know what you need, but I'm here. I want to learn how to be useful instead of important." I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd raised and lost, and might be finding again. "We're building raised garden beds this afternoon. Angela wants to expand the vegetable garden. You know how to use a hammer." His face cracked into the first real smile I'd seen from him in years. "Dad taught me. Then grab some gloves from the shed, and Ethan—" I waited until he looked at me. "Thank you for the legal help," Patterson told me. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing, it's something. Small but real. Keep doing real things." We worked side by side that afternoon, not saying much, just existing in the same space without tension. For the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful, broken only by the sound of hammers and saws, and Angela's delighted commentary on how beautiful her expanded garden would be. Doris brought us lemonade and terrible jokes. Ruth checked on us 3 times under the guise of making sure we had enough nails. Patricia watched from the window, smiling at something she understood better than she could articulate. Then Victoria showed up for her shift. She stopped cold when she saw Ethan, uncertainty and fear flashing across her unguarded face. He stood slowly, wiping sawdust from his jeans, and I braced myself for conflict. But he walked to her and said quietly, "I'm sorry I blamed you for everything, for making you the villain when we were both lost. This was my failure too, maybe even more mine than yours." They talked privately for a long time, while I pretended not to watch, while I built garden beds and prayed for them both. When they rejoined us, something had shifted between them. Not fixed, not healed, but maybe finally honest, maybe finally real, as the sun began to set over Heartland Haven, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that John would have loved. I stood on the porch watching my strange, broken, beautiful family working together. Ethan and Victoria measuring boards, Ruth directing operations with gentle authority, Doris planting the first seeds with Angela guiding her hands. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined back at that terrible Christmas dinner, when I fell to my knees on expensive Persian carpet and felt my world shatter. It was better, so much better, because it was real, messy and uncertain and imperfect and gloriously, painfully, beautifully real. The letter from Charleston's mayor arrived on a Tuesday morning in late April, delivered by regular mail among the donation checks and thank you notes that had become our daily bread. Official city seal embossed in gold. Formal language that made my hands shake before I even understood why. I almost dismissed it as another permit inquiry, another bureaucratic hurdle to clear. We dealt with so many over these months. Zoning laws, fire codes, health inspections. Each one conquered, each one proof that we belonged here, that what we were doing mattered. But Sarah grabbed my arm before I could set it aside, her fingers tight with excitement. Maggie actually read every word. So I did. "Dear Mrs. Thompson, it is our pleasure to announce that Heartland Haven has been selected to receive the City of Charleston Community Impact Award for exceptional and innovative service to vulnerable populations. Your vision and dedication have transformed not only a piece of land, but the lives of countless women who had been forgotten by our community. We would be honored if you would accept this recognition at a public ceremony on Saturday, April 29th, at 10 a.m. in the historic City Hall." The words blurred. My hands started trembling so badly that Sarah had to take the letter from me before I dropped it. "They want to give you an award," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "Public ceremony, press coverage, recognition from the city. Maggie, do you understand what this means?" "No." The word came out automatically, panic rising in my chest. "No, I can't. I don't need recognition. The women here, they're healing, they're second chances. That's the reward. That's all I need. I can't stand up in front of people and—" "Yes, you can." Doris appeared in the doorway, and I realized the whole house had been listening. Ruth stood behind her, then Patricia, then Angela, then the 3 newest residents whose names I was still learning to match with faces. All of them, my family of wounded healers, gathered to witness this moment. "This isn't about you being comfortable," Doris said firmly, using the voice she'd found after months of remembering she had one. "It's about showing the world that women over 50 still matter, that we're still here, still valuable, still worthy of investment and attention and respect. You taught us that, Maggie. Now you have to stand up and prove it to everyone else." "She's right," Ruth added. "Every woman who sees you accept that award will see herself, will remember that invisibility is a choice we can refuse." So I surrendered to their wisdom, their insistence, their love. The morning of the ceremony arrived bright and unseasonably warm. Charleston showing off its best self. Sarah had helped me shop for a new dress, not from clearance this time, but something chosen carefully, deliberately. Navy blue still, because some things don't change, but cut beautifully, fitting properly, making me look like someone who belonged on a stage instead of in a corner. "You're beautiful," Sarah said as she helped zip it up. "But more than that, you're powerful. Remember that. City Hall glowed in the morning light, its historic columns and high windows speaking of tradition and permanence. Inside, the ceremonial room was packed, easily 200 people, maybe more, press with cameras, city officials in suits, community leaders I recognized from newspapers, and in the back, clusters of women I didn't know, but whose faces told me they understood why they were here. My heart hammered so hard, I thought everyone could hear it. The mayor spoke first, then various council members, all praising Heartland Haven's mission and impact. I barely heard any of it. My mind was replaying that Christmas dinner on an endless loop. The fall, the humiliation, the push that started everything, how far I'd traveled from that moment, how much I'd lost and found and rebuilt. And now, to present the award, we have a special guest who insisted on being here today. I looked up, confused, then my breath caught, stopped completely. Ethan stood at the podium. He wore his court suit, the one he saved for important cases, but his face held none of its usual polished confidence. Instead, vulnerability radiated from him, raw, honest, unmistakable. "My mother," he began, his voice carrying across the packed room but shaking slightly, "spent 35 years as an emergency room nurse, caring for people in their darkest moments, people who had no one else, who came through those hospital doors broken and afraid and alone. She held their hands. She witnessed their pain. She made them feel seen when the world had taught them they were invisible." The room was absolutely silent, holding its collective breath. "She raised me alone after my father died in a car accident when I was 14, worked double shifts so I could have opportunities she never had. College, law school, a life she dreamed I'd build. And I," his voice cracked, but he pushed through. "I thanked her by making her invisible, by prioritizing image over integrity, success over substance, social status over the soul of who I was supposed to be, by forgetting that real wealth isn't measured in property values or professional accolades or how many important people know your name." People shifted in their seats, sensing something more than a standard presentation unfolding. 6 months ago, at a Christmas dinner I hosted, I pushed my mother, not hard, not violently, but I pushed her, and she fell in front of guests I valued more than her comfort, in a home where she should have been honored, but was instead relegated to a corner, like an embarrassing reminder of humble beginnings I wanted to forget. I heard gasps, saw people looking at each other with shock and recognition. Victoria sat 3 rows back, tears already streaming down her face. "Heartland Haven exists," Ethan continued, his voice growing stronger with confession, "because I tried to steal my mother's land for profit, because I was so lost in ambition, so desperate to belong to a world I thought mattered, that I betrayed the person who loved me most. I used legal documents she'd signed in trust to sell property that represented her history, her love story, her memories of my father, all so I could make money and impress people who ultimately didn't matter at all." The silence was deafening now. I could feel every eye in the room, but I only watched my son, this man I'd raised and lost and prayed over and maybe, finally, was beginning to know again. My mother could have destroyed me legally. She had every right. Instead, she took the land I tried to steal and transformed it into sanctuary. She turned her pain into purpose, her humiliation into hope, her loss into legacy. He looked directly at me, tears visible now to everyone. "Mom, I can't undo the hurt I caused. I can't erase the months you spent wondering if you'd lost your only child. But I can promise, in front of all these witnesses, to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you raised me to be, not the one I became, when I forgot that love is the only thing that actually matters." He stepped down from the podium, and in front of 200 people, cameras, and the entire leadership of Charleston, my son did something I'll remember until my last breath. He picked up one of the chairs from the stage, a simple wooden chair, nothing special, and carried it to where I stood frozen at the side, set it down carefully, deliberately in the absolute center of the stage. Then he took my hand and guided me to it. "This is your place, Mom, not in the corner where I put you, not hidden away where I tried to keep you, right here, at the center, where you've always belonged, where every woman belongs who's been told she doesn't matter anymore. The room erupted in applause that seemed to shake the historic building's foundations, but I barely heard it. I only felt my son's hand in mine, only saw his face, changed, humbled, trying so hard to find his way home. "Thank you," I whispered as he helped me sit, "for finding your way back to who you really are." "I'm not there yet," he whispered back. "But I'm trying every day, I'm trying." The ceremony continued around us. I gave a speech I'd prepared but barely remember now. Something about second chances and community, and the radical act of believing women over 50 still have contributions to make. I accepted the beautiful plaque that would hang in our common room. I smiled for photos with the mayor and council members, but the moment that truly mattered, the moment I'll carry into whatever comes next, happened after we'd organized a celebration dinner at Heartland Haven itself, a proper party to mark this milestone, this recognition that we existed and mattered. By 3 o'clock. The converted barn overflowed with people, 70 guests minimum, maybe 80, all crammed into our sacred space with its mismatched furniture and donated decorations, an atmosphere of hard-won joy, volunteers who'd hammered and painted, donors who'd believed in our mission, city officials in casual clothes, finally seeing the reality behind the statistics, church members who'd prayed and fundraised, and all 8 residents plus the 4 women who'd be moving in next month, each one glowing with the particular beauty of being seen. Tables groaned under potluck dishes, everyone bringing what they could, the way communities used to, before individualism convinced us we didn't need each other. Children ran between legs, their laughter the best music. Someone's phone played acoustic guitar songs, and Ruth sang along in her clear soprano voice that still surprised everyone who heard it. And in the middle of it all, exactly where I dreamed but never believed possible, Ethan sat beside me, not at the head of some distant formal table, not separated by social hierarchy or emotional distance or the walls we'd built between us, but right there, close enough to touch, shoulder to shoulder, helping serve food alongside Victoria, who laughed at something Doris said, a real laugh, the one I'd never heard until she stopped performing. "You did it, Maggie," Sarah said, squeezing my hand so tight it hurt in the best way. "You actually did it. We did it. All of us together. That's the only way anything real gets built." As the party began winding down into that golden late afternoon light that makes everything look like a painting, I noticed a new woman standing uncertainly at the door, mid-50s, haunted eyes, that I recognized from 1,000 air shifts, carrying a small, battered suitcase that probably held everything she owned. Marcus, one of our volunteer coordinators, was showing her around, speaking softly, giving her space to process. "That's Jennifer," Lena whispered, appearing at my elbow with her usual perfect timing. Our newest intake, estranged from her kids after years of them expecting her to babysit and financially support them while giving nothing back, finally said no, and they kicked her out. Nowhere else to go, no one else to call. I watched as Doris approached Jennifer with tea, and that gentle smile she'd perfected, the one that said, "I know, I understand. You're safe now." Watched as Ruth showed her around the common room, pointing out the quilts on the walls that residents had made, each one telling a story of transformation. Watched as Angela led her to the fireplace, where my letter hung framed. One day, I was humiliated at a table I'd helped to set. I fell, and in falling, I learned that pain can be the beginning of something beautiful. If you let it transform you rather than destroy you, no woman should feel invisible after 50. We are roots, and even when they cut our branches, we can still bloom, even in winter, even in darkness, even when everyone says we're finished. This place is proof that the end of one chapter is always the beginning of another. You are seen. You are valued. "You matter. Your story isn't finished. Welcome home." Jennifer read it once. Then again, her lips moving silently over the words. Then a third time, tears streaming down her face unchecked when she looked up. She saw all of us watching, not with pity or judgment, but with recognition, with understanding, with love earned through shared experience. "Is this real?" she whispered. The same question Doris had asked 7 months ago. The same question every woman asks when they first arrive, unable to believe that spaces like this exist. It's real, I promised, walking over to take her hands. And there's a place at our table. Not in the corner where someone thought you belonged, right in the middle, where every woman belongs who's been told her time is over. That night, after everyone left and the house settled into peaceful sleep, I stood on the porch with Ethan watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. The same stars John and I had watched from this land 40 years ago, planning impossible dreams that somehow, impossibly, had transformed into something even better than we'd imagined. Dad would be proud, Ethan said softly, breaking the comfortable silence, of what you built here, of how you turned pain into purpose, betrayal into blessing. He'd be proud of you too, I said honestly, for finding your way back, for having the courage to stand up and tell the truth, even when it cost you something. I'm not there yet. Victoria and I, we're in counseling, individual and couples. It's hard, Mom, really hard. Learning to be real after spending years performing, learning to value the right things. Some days I wake up and still want to check my investment portfolio before I check on the person sleeping next to me. But you're aware of it. That's the first step. Is it enough? I thought about that, choosing my words carefully because they mattered. Change isn't a destination, honey. It's a direction. You just have to keep walking toward who you want to become. Even when the path is hard, especially when it's hard. He was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? How did you do it? How did you forgive me when I absolutely didn't deserve it? When I'd earned your anger and rejection? I looked out at the land. John's land. My land, now belonging to something bigger than either of us had imagined, and tried to find words for something that felt too large for language. I forgave you, because holding on to anger was making me small again, making me the kind of person who lived in bitterness instead of purpose. And I'd finally learned, really learned, deep in my bones, that I don't have to shrink to make others comfortable. I turned to look at him fully. Neither do you, son. Neither does anyone. You get to be fully human, flawed and trying and sometimes failing spectacularly. That's not weakness. It's the whole beautiful mess of being alive and choosing, every single day, to try again. He pulled me into a hug then, really held me the way he used to as a child, when nightmares woke him and only his mother's arms made the world safe again. I felt him shaking slightly, felt tears against my shoulder, felt 34 years of love and pain and hope all tangled together in that embrace. I love you, Mom. I never stopped, even when I acted like I didn't know how. I know. Baby, I've always known. After he left, promising to come back on Saturday to help with the new garden expansion, I sat in John's old chair, the one I'd moved from home to my small office here, and pulled out my journal. My hands, weathered and capable and finally at peace, wrote, "Today I received an award for transforming land into legacy. The mayor called it exceptional service. The newspaper will call it community impact. But the real transformation wasn't the property. It was me. It was learning that invisibility is only possible when we accept it, that dignity isn't given by others. It's claimed by ourselves, that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments, but about showing up, being real, choosing compassion even when cruelty would be easier and revenge would be justified." Ethan sat beside me tonight, not because I demanded it, not because protocol required it, but because he wanted to, because he finally understood that the best place at any table is the one surrounded by people you love, being exactly who you are, all your flaws and failures visible alongside your strengths. I'm 60 years old. By society's standards, I should be fading into the background, accepting diminishment as the price of aging. But my story isn't over, it's just beginning. And every woman who walks through these doors learns the same truth. We are never too old, never too forgotten, never too broken to bloom again. We just need soil that believes in us, sun that sees us, water that nourishes our becoming. This is my place now, not in the corner where someone else decided I belonged. Right here, at the center of my own beautiful, messy, imperfect, gloriously alive life. Finally, I closed the journal and looked out through the window at Heartland Haven. Lights glowing warm against the spring darkness. Lives being rebuilt inside those walls. Women remembering they matter, remembering they're seen, remembering that the second half of life can be even more beautiful than the first if we're brave enough to claim it. This was inheritance, not property or money or social status, but love multiplied, purpose shared, grace given freely to those who don't deserve it, especially to those who don't deserve it, because that's what saves us all in the end. Not perfection, but the willingness to try again, to begin again, to bloom again, even after winter, even after being cut down, even after everyone says we're finished. We bloom anyway, and that changes everything.